everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Nikita, and on this channel we prioritize the inclusion of BIPOC, especially South Asian stories, both in literature and in real life, so you can expect a lot of book chats as well as my podcast called Brown People Problems. So for today's video, I don't really have a very specific idea in mind, but I just wanted to come on here, share a couple books that I have grabbed recently, and talk a little bit about recent 5-star reads as well as what I'm currently reading. Alright, so I recently grabbed a couple books, and actually now that I say a couple, it's not a couple, it's a few books. I believe almost 10 to be exact, so it's a bigger haul than I thought it was going to be, but I did grab these books at the span of, I want to say, 2 months or just a little bit under that. The first one that I got and I have started reading is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I read Circe by Madeline Miller last year and I absolutely loved it. It's back there. And I just thought her storytelling was so lyrical and so engaging, and I certainly really enjoy my Greek mythologies, so I really enjoyed Circe. I have, of course, heard a lot about The Song of Achilles. I've just never picked it up. It's like the winner of like the Orange Prize for fiction, which is pretty prestigious, and everyone's just been raving about this. So I decided to read it. I'm about 30 pages in. I am not really into it yet, to be honest, but I want to give it time. But this is basically the story of Achilles from Greek mythology, who's a warrior. It's told from the perspective of Patroclus, who was his like friend, companion, and it starts off with like the beginning of Patroclus's life and to when he meets Achilles, and I believe it goes into the Trojan War as well, the 10-year war. So I'll certainly keep you posted on how I like this book. After that, I got the physical copy of The Bangalore Detective Club by Harini Nagendra, and I think you probably heard me talk about it a few months ago, but this is a 1920s historical fiction set in Bangalore, India, pre-independence India. I really like my historical fiction, and just a heads up, the next few books are historical fiction. And I read this on my Kobo and I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it 4 stars if I'm not wrong, but it's a quick, easy read, and it's basically this, this was under like 300 pages. It's a quick mystery read, and in my opinion, how long mysteries should be, because otherwise they get so just tedious. But I enjoyed this because it follows our protagonist, Kaveri, who is, I believe, 19, and she gets married to a doctor, I believe, or a lawyer, one of those, and she moves to Bangalore. And she is a homemaker, like that's what's expected of women at that time. I believe her ambition was to study math, but just the society and culture didn't allow it at that time. So she moves to Bangalore and she finds herself like solving murders. So it's quite fun. It wasn't as in-depth as Sujata Massey's work that you've heard me talk about, the Widows of Malabar Hill author, but it was still fun. It was like a light read. Actually, it's been very fun for book clubs. I really enjoyed the historical fiction aspect of it. So I got this because I enjoyed it. And I got the second book in the series. It's called Murder Under a Red Moon. I believe this is more focused on like the Bangalore Detectives club that she forms. The first one was like her journey and her starting solo. So I think that's what this is going to be about more. And again, this one is quite short as well. Let's see. Yep, around less than 300 pages. So I'm going to pick this up soon as well. After that, I ended up picking up Bombay Prince in the Sujata Massey Widows of Malabar Hill series because I really enjoyed that series, and I don't have the full series. I only have the first book. And now this one, and the new one, the fourth one that came out, but I don't have the second one. So I'm still going to get that at some point. But yeah, it was finally in my bookstore. There was only one copy left, so I ended up picking it up. And I picked up the newest one in the series. This one is The Mistress of Bhatia House. This came out literally this past week, I believe on July 11th, the Tuesday. And I am about 40% through. I am really enjoying it. So this one continues to follow our protagonist, Perveen Mystery. If you haven't heard of this series, or if you haven't read it, the Widows of Malabar Hill series is, again, 1920s India historical fiction, and it's set in Mumbai, and that time Bombay, British presidency. But it follows Perveen Mystery, who is a woman in her early 20s. She's like the first female lawyer in the city and one of the first in the country. She's Oxford educated, but of course she couldn't take the bar, so she's not technically like she's a lawyer, but she, you know, can't defend clients in court. But anyway, she finds herself in each book in the series, she finds herself wrapped up in some sort of a mystery, and she's solving it. This one is particularly interesting because in this one, there is a huge focus on women's healthcare and like the inequity in healthcare in 1920s, and just large cases of female like gynecological illnesses, and there's a more of a social focus on that. And Mr. Sapatia House is basically just about this family, the Bhatia family, who have two daughters-in-law, and I believe it's about one of the daughters-in-law because something fishy is going on in the house. And of course Perveen finds herself like enraptured by what's going on. So I don't know more than that about it, and I obviously don't want to share everything that's happening in the book for those of you who'd be interested in it, but this continues to live up to Sujata Massey's incredible writing style and her ability to paint like such an amazing picture of that time. I had no idea, but her first book, The Widows of Malabar Hill, has won like the Mary Higgins Clark Award as well as like the Agatha Christie Award. So I was surprised to hear that, but it's very well deserved because her work is really fun. And I'll keep you posted on how this goes, but this could be a potential like 4.5 stars. After that, I ended up picking up Brotherless Night by V.V. Ganeshananthan. This is the story of, again, historical fiction, but it's set in like 1980s, I believe, so a lot more recent than like 100 years ago. But this is set in 1981, Sri Lanka, and it's about a 16-year-old female protagonist. Her name is Sashi, and she wants to go to med school, but the civil war in Sri Lanka breaks out, so I believe it's her story through that. Some really famous authors have blurbed this book, so you've got like Celeste Ng who blurbed it, you've got Britt Bennett who's blurbed it, and sounds really promising, but the reviews that I've read of this book is just that people say that it's like absolutely devastating and heartbreaking, and that doesn't deter me from it, but it does make me a little bit cognizant of when I'm going to pick it up. So I'm going to pick this up at a time when maybe I have a little bit more emotional bandwidth. So I will keep you posted on that, but this sounded really interesting as well. And a couple more books. I ended up getting First Comes Like by Alicia Rai. This is the author who wrote the Partners in Crime book that I really enjoyed a couple months ago, the rom-com, and I believe this is another rom-com. This is just between like a beauty, like a guru on a beauty influencer on YouTube, and like I think he's a Bollywood star, like a son of a Bollywood star, one of those. So I'm looking forward to that because I really enjoyed her other book. Then I ended up grabbing The Mothers by Britt Bennett. This is the same author who wrote Vanishing Half, and I really enjoyed The Vanishing Half. It's about these two black women from this, it's set in the 60s, two black women who are twins, and just like the family that they come from and the town that they come from, they are really quite light-skinned, so they can pass off as white. And they're born during the time of segregation, so it's really interesting because one twin proceeds to live her life as a black woman and the other one proceeds to live her life as a white woman, and it follows them over the span of their life, and it follows their children as well, and it just goes to show the differences just that their perceived skin color and their perceived race makes on their quality of life. And so this is her other novel. I believe this was her first one, and I'm excited about this. I don't know much about it. This is of course a literary fiction, as is all of Britt Bennett's books, and I believe this is about a 17-year-old girl named Nadia, and she falls in love with her local pastor's 21-year-old son. And there's a secret that results from this teen romance and their subsequent cover-up. I'm thinking possibly pregnancy, and it has far-reaching impacts beyond their youth. And it seems like it follows them into adulthood, where their choices catch up with them, and they find themselves like reflecting on what other choices they could have made. So again, it sounds like more of like a deeper, evocative, thought-provoking type of a book. And the last one that I picked up is also a book that recently came out this week, so second week of July. It's A Most Agreeable Murder by Julia Seals. I hope I pronounced that right. But I absolutely love the cover. And I thought the spine was nice as well. It is a nice cover. And what really drew me to it is that this is a Regency era satire. So it takes like all the Austens and it takes, you know, all these like Regency era romances and Regency era mysteries that are written and just like mashes them together. And it's a parody of books written in Regency style. So I love a good satire, I love a good parody, and I just felt really, really drawn to it. Even as like you open the dust jacket and you read the blurb, it sounds so ridiculous, but also fun. So I'm certainly looking forward to giving this a read. It has pretty good reviews on Goodreads, but because it's brand new, I just wasn't sure if I wanted to take the risk, but I decided to anyway, so I'll keep you posted on that. Oh, and I also got this book recently. This is the second one in A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting. This is A Lady's Guide to Scandal by Sophie Irwin. This is a Regency era fiction, so it's not romance. So it is a rom-com, but it's not in the romance category at the bookstore. It's just in the fiction category. And it has a different set of characters than the first one, so I believe you can still read the first one, where it's this young woman who needs to be married, and it's like, you know, it's her first season coming out in the London season, but her family is really broke and in debt, and she needs to marry for fortune. And this is the second one. This follows Miss Eliza Balfour. She ends up marrying someone who's significantly her senior, and then she dies, and then she finds herself to be a young widow, and you can tell there's probably like a bit of a love triangle. I really enjoyed this. I gave it a 4.5 stars. I thought it was so much fun, and I just love books that definitely have a lot more of a plot than just romance. And it's hard to believe that this is Sophie Irwin's second book ever, because just the way that she writes is so incredible. She's so good at telling a story. She's so good at painting her characters. What I was really pleasantly surprised by, there were two things in this book. One was there was some diversity in here. You never, or at least I have never read a Regency era historical fiction that has cultural diversity in it. You know, I mean, Shonda Rhimes has definitely taken Bridgerton and she's diversified it a lot more, but if you read the Bridgerton books, like, there's no diversity. And this was really interesting because one of the characters, he is half Indian. He's half Indian, and I really enjoyed that, because not only is there just like a little bit of diversity, but it's not also diversity for diversity's sake. Like, you also get that diversity woven into the character's personality and his psyche, and you hear more about it, right? It's not just like a token brown guy. There is a little bit more to it. So I really appreciated that. And I also really loved Eliza. She's probably one of my favorite heroines of all time. She was just so... Well, I'm not going to say much, because if you haven't read it, then we wouldn't want to ruin it for you, but I just loved her character development. I loved her journey, and if I could spend a day with a fictional character, Besides maybe, Harry Potter, it would probably be Eliza. She was great. And so I finally finished the Bandit Queens by Perini Schroff. I got this book a couple months ago and I just hadn't started it, and I've never heard of this author. It will make sense because it's her debut, but I have seen this book on other people's TBR, on YouTube, and it's been on Instagram, and I gotta say, I really enjoy this. This is fiction, and I thought it was really well done. I ended up giving this 5 stars. That doesn't mean that it was perfect for me. I had some qualms with it, but I had a lot of fun reading this. This essentially follows, I believe it's set in like modern day India, in like a small rural village, and it follows this young woman named Nikita whose husband disappears. But everybody assumes that she killed him. And so she becomes sort of this like feared figure in her village, until other women start showing up at her door asking for favors to dispose of their abusive husbands. So she finds herself like wrapped up in all these schemes, and there's definitely like a huge comedic element to this. There is, in the second half at least, there's like a lot of great commentary on just like caste and caste discrimination in South Asia, and there was some diverse characters as well. First half of the book, I gotta say, it felt a tiny bit of a drag. Like it was just dialogue mainly, without too much reflection. But I really enjoyed Gita's character development. I really enjoyed the band of women here and the female friendships. That was a lot of fun to read. There's definitely some mature themes in here for sure. So no like trigger warnings like domestic violence and sexual assault and all of that. But it wasn't too dark. There wasn't too much of an emphasis on it. There's a lot of swearing in here. There's a lot of profanity. And one thing that I didn't appreciate, and I don't know how others feel about this, so if you've read this, you let me know your thoughts, but usually when you read a book that is like deeply focused in a different culture than yours, the author would typically give like a glossary of terms at the back, so you can use that to kind of translate if they use some words in like other language. Perini Schroff didn't do that. There is no glossary in here, and it wasn't a problem for me. I speak Hindi, and so some of the words, and it's mostly the swear words that were in Hindi, so it's not a problem for me. But I was wondering, someone reading this book who doesn't understand Hindi would either miss out on a lot of context and like jokes if they don't have the glossary, because I don't know how motivated everyone is to stop the book, Google what this word means. It just feels tedious. So I don't know for what reason the author didn't include that. Maybe, I don't know, was it a budget thing? I'm not sure, because there's no photo of the author either. Usually you get like a blurb about the author. There's a blurb, but it's just a little text. It's just a text blurb. And there's no photo here. So I'm not sure if it was like a budget decision or what, but I can see that people who are from this part of the world, or who speak and understand Hindi, even if it's basic Hindi, they would be totally immersed in the book, because there's quite a bit of Hindi words. Not full sentences, just words here and there, but that are so important to the context. So if you don't speak Hindi, if you're not familiar with it and you are planning on picking this up, just know to have, Google pulled up on the side, and just be mindful too of like the words that you're Googling, but you're probably gonna have to have that in order for you to really be immersed in the story. That was really my only qualm, and otherwise I actually really, really enjoyed the book. Towards the end especially, the author has some great commentary on caste discrimination, but also on gender discrimination and what it really is to be like a woman in a man's world, especially in a traditionally orthodox patriarchal society. And some of the things that she just said, they just so well said and well done that I found myself, kind of trying to like bookmark a couple things. Like there's something that she says here, and this is not a spoiler by any means, but there's a sentence here that when a man had a baby girl put in his arms, he saw his name and legacy disappear, to be swallowed by another man. His grandchildren would have to strain to recall his family name, a name that his great-grandchildren would never know. And that was so, just really hit the nail on the head. That was very succinct. That was very powerful. And maybe it just really resonates with me because I was having a discussion about the same with someone in my personal life some time ago. And it really kind of just, makes you stop and really reflect that is unfortunately the truth for a lot of women who decide to change their names after they get married. So I enjoyed that piece as well. It was quite reflective towards the end. The story was funny, the cast of characters was funny, the twists and turns were funny. And I think a lot of people would like this book if they gave it a chance. All right, that's all I had for today. Those are just some books that I have recently picked up and read and currently reading. If any of these sounded nice to you, let me know which one you plan on looking into more, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it. But thank you for joining me today. Hope you all are doing well and keep diversifying your reading, and we'll chat next time.